I'd like to welcome you to the Faribault Public Schools business meeting of the Faribault Public School Board here on July 24th, 2023. If you have the agenda in front of you, item number 1 is our strategies. Item number 2 is where the meeting can be viewed live on YouTube. And of course, number 3, what I just did, the call to order. And Ms. Steves, as clerk, if you would signify to us if we have a quorum present.
Yes, Mr. Bellingham, we do.
So we have a quorum present. At this time, I'd ask everyone to remove your hats, stand if you're able to, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to item number 4, which is a approval of the agenda. So at this time, could I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Dr. Robichaud. And do we have a second? Ms. Boudreau, that's yours.
Yes.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Robichaud and a second by Ms. Boudreau for approval of the agenda. Any discussion?
Yes, I think you can hear me here. Yes, Mr. Chair, I would just like to pull out item 7C, and I just have a question, and I think it's for, so I just have a question on that, if we could just pull out 7C.
Okay, so we'll note that
Yes,
when we get
thank you.
to the consent agenda
Thank you.
to pull out 7C on the budget information with that. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes 6-0. Next, we'll move on to item number 5, recognition of awards and presentations. So first we have Ella Bettner, No Tummies Left Behind. Excuse me, Mr. Gertis, come forward.
I think I'm bringing up a whole troop of people here. We have some more chairs. So thank you here as we all get situated. So again, I want to introduce Ella Bettner and her mom and dad, Nicole and Fred. I remembered it this time, and a couple of her and a couple of her friends that are sitting behind her. I believe this is Ella's 3rd time presenting to the school board here. Ella and her foundation, nonprofit foundation, made another donation to the school district right at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. And so I'd like to just recognize them and let them say a few words here. I think Ella's got a few words written.
Thank you for inviting me here tonight. I appreciate your recognition. I started No Tummies Left Behind with a desire to help other kids. What I have found is it helped me more. I've learned a lot about running a business, from determining what charms to purchase to thinking more about profits, knowing that the greater the profit, the more kids it would help. I've also learned that I can't do this alone. I couldn't have done it without my Tommy Troop, friends who have volunteered to help during our events, and booths which contributed to our ability to pay off Faribault School negative lunch balances. I've invited my members of my Tommy Troop here tonight, and I'd like them to stand up to also be recognized. In addition to all of those awesome friends I just mentioned, I couldn't have done it without my family. My mom helped a lot at booth and helped a lot with advertising, and my dad who managed our home where we spent half of our weekends working at the booths. And I couldn't forget all of our community partners and businesses who have helped me, especially Scott and his family for volunteering at our silent auction event, and Kim Anderson from the Faribault Foundation, who continues to be our financial partner. I can't possibly name all the businesses who have helped us, but our current partners include Good Day Coffee, Salon Capri, Fairway, and Furlong Motors in Faribault, where my bracelets are currently displayed. So stop by and support a local business and local kids by picking up one of my bracelets. We will also be manning the food trailer at Cashwise Food in Owatonna on Friday, July 28th and Saturday, July 29th. So stop by and pick up a hot dog and help kids while filling your own belly. Thank you again. I look forward to continuing to support local kids to make sure they don't go hungry. Our next venture is partnering with the Community Action Center to finance the food program that helps kids eat on non-school days.
So I just wanted to add a few comments here. So for fiscal year 23, so last school year, Ella and her nonprofit donated just under $10,000 to Faribault Public Schools through all of the money she has done, and almost single-handedly wiped out our school debt for fiscal year 23.
Thank you. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Ella? Dr. Robichaud?
Sure, I don't have any questions, but just on behalf of all the students that you've helped in this district, thank you. You're a very wonderful person, and I think you have just a dynamic future in front of you. When you open up your own business, let us know what it is, because we want to come and shop there, okay? Your next business, I should say. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I too would like to thank you for persevering. This has been a long time of raising money, and you have done so many projects. It's very impressive, and want to again thank you on behalf of the whole board. We
Thank you.
appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes. Mr. Chair? Yes, Ella, I think we want to thank you very much. I think you're gracious and humble, and we want to thank you and your family and your friends and all the others, Mr. Gertis too, all the others for helping, and I think it's such a good cause, and we're so grateful for you, and I know there's so many families that are so grateful to you too, so thank you.
Thank you.
Cassie, Richard? Ella, I'd just like to, on behalf of the board as well, thank you for your work. I think you're wise and mature beyond your age. And I really appreciate how you involved the people behind you who helped you and the business partners in town and how you've pulled this community together for this common cause. And that just doesn't happen overnight. And for you to be recognized is definitely something that should happen and happen frequently. So thank you for all your work and for the benefit that you've provided for kids in this district, community, and around the area as well. So again, thank you very much. Let's have another round of applause for Ellen. Board members, we will have a photograph right now, so if we could come up and come around to the front, board members, and
Yeah, you should be in.
No, that's why I stand way over here.
thank you all so much. Next, we'll move on to agenda item number 5B, the recognition for Faribault Transportation, Bob Palmquist. If you'd come forward, please. And Garrett. Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the board. We appreciate the time this afternoon and recognizing Bob Palmquist here. So Bob has been recognized this year as our Transportation Specialist Award winner. So that's a statewide event. He was presented with the award on June 20th, and he's one of 6 winners across the whole state. So it's a nomination process where Bob was nominated, and then after the scoring was presented with the award and was very deserving of it. So Bob has driven for us for the last 16 years. He's done athletic events, some extracurriculars, and route, but most in particular, he's been doing the STEP program, which is the 18 to 21 program, where he serves students most of the day, so about 8 hours of the day, and takes students to and from work programs, manages their changing schedules, and serves them in those ways. So Bob spent time in the Air Force for just under 10 years and was very involved in the soccer association as well in Faribault for about 11 years as a referee, coach, served on the board, etc. So Bob's taken that servant-like attitude throughout his adult life and probably beyond. And we're blessed to have him here at Faribault Transportation, and very glad that he was recognized because it's most deserving, and we're glad to have him here on our team. So as long as we don't interrupt his lunch schedule during the day, he's a happy camper, and we like having him around. So congratulations to Bob, and thank you all for recognizing him this afternoon. I did.
Bob, do you wish to say a few words?
I am not much of a public speaker in any sense of the form, and honestly, having to follow the young lady ahead of me, how do you do that one? So, all I can really say is honestly, thank you, and thank you to Garrett and Faribault Transportation, and it was a great honor receiving the award.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any comments or things? Bring on the accolades.
Mr. Chair, I would thank you, Bob, for your efforts over these years. It's not always easy to be a bus driver. I hope you can be an example that we can get more bus drivers, because I know we're always in need. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And thank you again for your patience in doing this job and task. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well,
Dr.
first
Robichaud,
of all,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Bob, for your service to our country and your service to
You're welcome.
our
Thank you.
community. It's very much appreciated. Keep up the hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, for keeping our kids safe.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I believe that from doing a little research and being told, I think this is the 29th straight year that Faribault Transportation has been able to have one of the 6 drivers or one of the drivers be recognized by the state of Minnesota, and that just doesn't happen by coincidence. I think we have a real first-class operation in Faribault Transportation. Our bus drivers are second to none, because when I was a teacher and a coach, I was a consumer as well, getting on and off the athletic buses and driving in some horrendous weather conditions, etc. But most importantly, and I think most people, the kids that ride the bus driver is the first and last person they come in contact with in the school day. And the bus driver is as utmost important as anyone they come in contact with every day, and that includes paras, teachers, secretaries, custodians, principals, whatever. The bus driver is really an integral part, and the bus company as well. So we can't thank you enough for what you do day in and day out, and for what our transportation company does, and it's just an honor to have you here and to be recognized like that. So thank you ever so much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll move on now to item 5C, the student board representative. It says no report, but we do have our new additional student board representative, and this is James Silver. And James is going to introduce himself, tell him about it, and about himself, and we'll go from there.
Hello, everyone. My name is James. I am replacing Sophia Mentz in the student representative position, and I'm excited for the school year.
What year are you at the high school?
Sophomore. I'm going into sophomore year.
Be a sophomore. Excellent. Okay, great. Well, it's great to have you on board, and welcome. So we're not going to put you on the spot anymore, so we're good to go. Move on to item number 6, school board public comment, the guidelines. I'll read this. This is an opportunity for residents, businesses, and property owners, parents, students, and employees of the Faribault Public School District to address the board. You must sign up in person at the board meeting and address the board from the presenter's table. Members of the public will address their remarks with civility and respect. After being recognized by the chair, each individual will identify themselves and the group they represent, if any. Please state your reason for addressing the board. This is not a time to debate an issue, but for the board to hear your comments. Public comment is not available at work sessions, closed sessions, or special board meetings of the school board. The Minnesota Government Data Practices Act prohibits comment about specific students or staff members, even without naming them, in open session. This includes the public comment portion of our meeting. The board respects and values input, but when it relates to specific student, staff, or to a specific matter, such input must be heard by the appropriate personnel, such as the building principal or superintendent, and not during an open meeting of the school board. Anyone interested in making a public comment will be asked to complete an information form before the meeting starts, providing their name, address, and topic of their comment. All comments must conform to School Board Policy 206, which is available for review at the district website, www.faribault.k12.mn.us. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make comments on one specific topic. Each topic will have a total of 15 minutes allowed for comments. With that, tonight, since normal meetings, I am the timer, so I have asked Ms. Steves to be the 3-minute timer. We have 3 people who would like to provide public comment, and the first public commenter is Shar Anderson, and the topic is gender. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. I know that there's nothing on the agenda tonight about gender issues, but there have been presentations in previous meetings concerning this, and I just wanted to build on some of those comments and presentations from previous meetings. So, in the name of Jesus, I say that there's an elephant in the room. There's one that no one wants to talk about or even acknowledge, and this is it. We, the human race, did not evolve from the primordial ooze, nor are we a result of a big bang. There is such a thing as intelligent design, and there is an intelligent designer. It is God. In Hebrew, he's called Yehoshua, or Yahweh. In Greek, he's called Yeshua. In English, he's called Jesus. And all things were made through him, including us. He not only made us, but he made us according to a specific design. Very complex, but not complicated. Biologically, he made us male and female, just so. And there are a lot of people who say differently, but just because they say it doesn't make it so. Our two-gender design affects our daily lives in more ways than we can count. But there are some specific ways that have been discussed in the school board meetings and directly affect our school district, and I want to address 3 of those. So I say that because of Jesus' biological design, girls' sports should be played only by biological females. Boys' sports should be played only by biological males. Girls' locker rooms should be only for biological females. Boys' locker rooms only for biological males. Girls' bathrooms should be only for biological females. Boys' bathrooms should be only for biological males. And there's one last thing that I want to say. Jesus didn't make us and then just walk away and leave us on our own. That is a philosophy that's called deism, and it's wrong. Rather, he sees all things, he knows all things, he never sleeps, he never slumbers, he's always present, and he's active. That's kind of it. That's what needed to be said, and now it is. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next commenter for public comment here is Roger Steinkamp. And his topic is legislative funding. Good evening.
Thank you. Well, I'm Roger Steinkamp, and I'm an old ag teacher for 20 years, and so I've been in the schools for a while. But there's been a surge in funding from the legislature for education, and I think if we're wise, we take advantage of it. Like $2.6 billion or 10.8% increase in funding for education isn't something to laugh at. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were talking about 1%, 0.5%, what have you. And there's another $3.2 billion coming down the pipeline in the 2 years that follow. So we didn't get into this current situation overnight of our education system. I've worked here and overseas in other systems, and we do have a problem, but we didn't get there overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight. So this funding is historical increase in funding, and let's take advantage of it. I'm happy we didn't pull out of the Minnesota State High School League. Our students, and I think that was demonstrated in the public, wants their kids participating. And so just to list a few of the things that are being funded, and they're not unfunded mandates. There's money behind them. There's funding for libraries. So instead of concentrating on what books shouldn't be in the library, let's improve our libraries and take advantage of it, rather than banning books. And if students are struggling with languages, money there to improve our language programs. And, the corollary of that is to improve reading skills by giving our teachers additional training to help our students. Let's increase there's money to encourage people of color to go into teaching, and we need more of that. It's there. There's 3,000 preschool seats that are being preserved and another 2,000 that are slated to be added in. What's wrong with that? Let's prepare more special ed teachers. There's a shortage. There's money to do that. What's wrong with having ethnic studies in every school? I spent the majority of my career working in somebody else's culture, and I know what it's like to appreciate what other students are going through and what they have. So I don't see any problem with that. And there's money for it, so let's get with it. When I grew up, the revisionist history that I learned in high school out in good old Renville, it was nice. I thought, my great-granddad was fine.
Mr. Steinkamp, could you finish the next few seconds here, please?
So anyway, there's money there. There's some of the policies are being mandated, but they're also funded. And so I guess my short answer is I hope we take advantage of that, and I'm sure you all are working through that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Steinkamp. Next, we have Carolyn Treadway, and her topic is board policy and practice. Good evening.
Good evening. Do you need me to identify myself or spell my name?
Yes, please.
I'm Carolyn Treadway, a resident of Faribault in this Faribault district. My name is CarolynTreadway. And as Mr. Bellingham indicated, I'm here to talk about board policy and practice. I have 3 points that I ask the board to consider. 1, a district policy is needed that outlines the expectations of board members in regard to naming a member of the public in their comments. During the July 10th work session, a member of the public was maligned by name and described in derogatory terms by a board member for the member of the public lodging a legitimate ethics complaint. Board policy says personal attacks by anyone addressing the school board are unacceptable. The reverse should also be true. A policy is needed that addresses this issue, and those kinds of comments need to be called out by the board chair and other board members until this policy is approved. Number 2, the board needs to adhere to Robert's rules regarding discussion after a motion has been made and seconded. Robert's rules clearly state that discussion must be limited to the merits of the specific motion being considered, not the general subject. For example, when the board was considering renewal of membership in the State High School League, discussion should not have been allowed that opposed participation by specific students in female athletic programs. Allowing such bird walking gives an unwarranted as well as disallowable platform for political rhetoric. Number 3, board members certainly have the right to vote their conscience. Voting one's conscience has consequences, however. If I break a law because I disagree with it, I must accept the consequences of that action. Likewise, board members who vote in opposition to school policy, local, state, or federal laws must have consequences. An ethics complaint has been lodged against a board member who put forward a motion during a policy committee meeting that conflicted with state and federal laws. Even after being advised that her motion was illegal, she refused to withdraw it. Censure needs to be the consequence for that behavior, and it needs to be the consequence for any future attempts to circumvent the law by
Ms.
any
Treadway, could you
board
finish up here
member.
quickly?
I expect no less than an official reprimand from this public body. Please use your power of censure, or this politically motivated behavior will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Treadway. Board members, now we'll move on to agenda item number 7, the consent agenda. So I will ask for a motion for approval of the consent agenda for 7A, B, and D. We have pulled 7C out. So we do have that motion for approval for the consent agenda 7A, B, and D.
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. There is no discussion on a consent agenda, so all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 6-0. So now let's deal with the item that was pulled out, the consent agenda item 7C, which is additional assignments and others. So motion for approval of 7C, additional assignment and others, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. And so now that I will turn over for discussion, and Ms. Moore, since you asked for this to be pulled, I'll
Yes, thank you,
ask
Mr.
that.
Chair. When I was looking through this, and also I had a question from a constituent, and I'm not going to name the person here, but it's considered the approval of hiring. It was the an elementary teacher this summer, and it was for 35 days for $9,287.38, effective July 1st to August 18th. Someone asked me how many students does this person have, so I thought I better check with Mr. Benty, and I did this morning. And Mr. Benty, would you just clarify for me for that? You said that was part of the, it was part of the grant. That was correct? I talked to you about that, or I talked to you about
So
that.
the individual that you're referencing in the
Yeah, I don't
consent
want to name
agenda
that individual just because it's,
this is not to hire them as a classroom teacher. This is to hire them for 35 days as a
right, and so
literacy
somebody asked how,
specialist.
yes. And
The
so
family
would you-
literacy specialist money comes out of the CLSD grant, which is a grant from the Department of Education. It is not part of our general fund money, and it does not affect our general fund in any way. So this is really use it or lose it type money. So that $9,287.38 will not be coming out of our general fund. It will be charged back to the state in the grant funding.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that for the public. Appreciate that.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second for approval of consent agenda item 7C. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We'll move on to item agenda number 8, retirement. Deborah Hawley, 19 years of service. Ms. Yoakum, do you wish to come up, or should I just read what's on the, we're good with that? Okay, so we have, well, first of all, let's have the motion for approval of retirement for Deborah Hawley.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Discussion. In the memorandum here on board book is that recommending approval of retirement of Deborah Hawley, early childhood special education paraprofessional at McKinley Center. Deborah is employed with Faribault Public Schools for a total of 19 years. Discussion or comments? I will simply say thank you for the longevity, 19 years in the special education program as a professional, paraprofessional. Says a lot about how you interacted with children and the good you did for our district. So thank you ever so much for your service.
I second your comments, Mr. Bellingham.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Any further comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor for retirement of Deborah Hawley. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item number 9, finance. 9A is the minutes of the finance committee. Mr. Gertis, do you wish to come up and report on these? First of all, board members, since it's a report, do we have any questions on the finance committee meetings in the report? From the 20th of June. Okay. Okay, no questions. We'll move on to then item 9B, which is the 2023 School Finance Award recipient and a report. So, Mr. Gertis, I'm going to ask you to
Explain this?
toot your own horn. How's
Well,
that?
I don't do a very good job of tuning my own horn, but I did bring this to finance and wanted to also share it with the board. Every year, the Department of Education issues a finance award. This is the 23 award. This is based on our 2022, so now 2 years ago, financial performance. But every year, the state gives out an award. There's not a lot of criteria. If you look at the first page that's up on the screen, you basically need to hit the timelines as set forth by the Department of Education and state statute. A3 is to have a clean fiscal compliance table, which is kind of a big deal. A4 is to have an audit done, completed, submitted, and turned into, again, the Department of Ed by the end of the calendar year. And the last one, which is using the state-approved software, which is kind of a gimme requirement, right? But the other thing that it does measure, and the real reason I kind of wanted to bring this to the board, is it does kind of measure too the picture of our financial health, right? If you look at section B, 1, 2, and 3 talks about kind of where we need to be with our fund balances. We talk about those kind of on an annual basis. Specifically, our unrestricted fund balance 422, but it also mentions some of the other ones that we also report on to the board that aren't so common as the 422 unrestricted. So if you scroll down farther in this document, down NASCO, multiple pages, you'll get to District 656. You can see that we are listed there as one of the award recipients for 2023.
Excellent, and congratulations, and thank you. Board members, any comments that you wish to make?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Gertis, for your efforts. We
Yep, thank
appreciate
you.
hearing the good things.
Thank you, Linda.
Mr. Chair, I think, Mr. Gritish, you're minimizing the significance of this award. You and your staff need to be recognized for whether it's a clean audit or other factors that, the Department of Education just doesn't hand these things out verbatim. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think you're humbly too humble.
All right. One of my many weaknesses.
Oh, I wouldn't consider it a weakness.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Moore?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gertis. I know many times, since I'm new to the board, I ask questions, and especially on the weekend, I'll be asking questions. And I have to say, you respond within a short period of time, and I didn't expect that. But,
Yeah.
And you're very clear with your answers, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Gertis, I asked you to toot your own horn, if you will, and that I heard that through my teaching career and whatever it is. Tell us what you're doing good, or tell us all about your successes. And I think a lot of schools, whatever, we don't do that well. We don't say we're doing a good job. And I really want to say it from my perspective. This is the reports you have and how you're projecting out, and your student counts, et cetera, has been virtually spot on. And we're truly fortunate to have you and your staff here, and how the service you're providing for Faribault Public Schools. So it's a well-deserved recognition, and I believe we should all give you a round of applause and your staff.
Well, thank you, John, and the board, and to both your points, I do want to thank to my staff. I have a great staff. We've had some turnover in the accounting department, but as I sit here in front of you, I have a great team behind me, and none of that would be possible without them. So,
Right. So now if you would roll into 9C1,
Right.
the enrollment report. I'll
Right.
keep you right there.
So 9C. So this report is kind of a first snapshot at our year-end numbers for fiscal year 23. So if you look at the top part of that report, it's the same report. The top half is the same report that I shared back in June, with a final budget that we adopted in the green of $3,223. As of this report, we showed 3,227, so that's 4 over. If you look at our first peak, actually it's the second peak in the bottom, so NASCO, if you could slide up just a little bit, kind of down in the bottom there, current enrollment projections, and there's still some work to be done here, but it's 3,229, so that's about 6.5 kids more than our final budget, so that's pretty close. Now again, I do want to say this one more time. There is still some adjustments being done as I sit here and talk to you today, but I believe most of those adjustments should be positive adjustments, and that this number will only rise by a little bit. But we'll have another update for the board in August at the August board meeting, which will be the numbers that will probably be used to calculate our final revenue for fiscal year 23 and for the audit forthcoming.
Any questions? Dr.
Chair,
Robichaud?
Mr. Gradis, what figure and what account does the state use for our revenue from the state? Do they use the one that you will give us in August, Or is that October?
So, NASCO, if you could put that back up. So the state uses in the bottom right-hand corner there,
3229?
that is the state number as of our last upload, which was the end of July.
Okay.
Not the end of July, middle of July, right? So there'll be another one that I'm gonna get next Monday, will be an update to that. There's another one that will be updated in the middle of August, which is what I'll present to the board at the August board meeting, which is the one we will start calculating all of our revenue calculations on for our audit, which starts second week in September.
Thank you.
So, moving on to the next document, just an investment report, you will see a large increase in funding from May to June. Before anybody gets too overly excited, this is the 1 month where we do have a big jump in the month of June, where we get our first half of our property tax payments from Rice County through the property tax collection, which is actually for fiscal year 24, the year we're in now. But that payments come last year. So again, that's roughly about $5 million, which is about roughly what you see here for an increase. Now, before everybody gets too excited, I would say that we do not get a state aid payment in the month of July. And so our cash numbers are going to go down in the month of July. We also stop all funding requests for our grants until we get them all settled. And because we can't pay out a lot of them because we haven't paid out salaries yet. So our cash numbers will dwindle from this point for July, August, and September until we kind of get back up on going again in October. So I'm going to give you a fair warning right now on July 24th.
Good. Any questions, comments, board members? Guess you move on to the comparative financial reports.
So the last report for this go-around, comparative financials, the top half we're not necessarily going to talk about with the utilities. We did do budget adjustments, as I mentioned last month, which pretty much is trued them up for fiscal year 23. The number I did want to talk about at the bottom, NASCO, if you could slide up like one notch, thank you. You'll see there is revenue over expenses year to date for our self-insurance account of about $728,000 and change. Now, that is an increase, obviously, to our fund balance in Fund 20 that we use to keep track of all of this. I do want to point out that these numbers still will be adjusted for our IBNR. Again, another acronym, and I'll explain this one, is incurred but not received, where we try and actually capture all of the expenses that happened on or before June 30th. So there will be more expense that will get posted into this, so this number will drop. Typically, in the past couple of years, it's been between $80,000 and $100,000. But I honestly don't know that until I get the reports here in a couple of weeks from now. So any questions on that? Regardless of what the IBNR is, we did have another good year in our self-assurance account. So we'll increase to our fund balance there.
Great. Further questions, board members? Okay, we'll move on to item 9C4. Resolution 2401, accepting gifts and donations. I'll read the gifts and donations here. A is Ella Bettner, No Tummies Left Behind, $1,264. Negative meal accounts. Ken and Vicky Hubert, $50 for the Little Falcons program. Could I have a motion for approval of Resolution 2401 for gifts and donations?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Robichaud. And do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. We have a motion and a second. And do we have any discussion? Discussion or comments? Again, huge thank you to Ella Bettner and crew for her donation for our negative meal accounts. And also Ken and Vicki Hubert for money for the Little Falcons program, which has been a big success as well. Seeing no further comments, Ms. Steves, if you would do a roll call, please, and chair is last.
Sure. Linda Boudreau,
Aye.
Linda Moore,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud,
Aye.
Cassie Steves, aye. John Bellingham.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Very good, thank you. Next, we'll move on to item 9D, Items reviewed by the Finance Committee and suggested for board approval. 9D1, consider approval of fiscal year 24 through fiscal year 33 transportation contract. Scott, I'm going to ask you and Mr. Regan to come forward here.
I have a whole other different crew with me that I've asked to come forward, so come on. Need a few more chairs. No, you cannot sit in the back.
So I believe we're going, Mr. Gertis, we're going to have the presentation first, and then we'll have a motion and a second to deal with the contract. How's that?
That would be great.
Thank you.
So, as you can see, I brought another crew of good people with me here tonight. You know, you surround yourself with good people. And good people, I can't remember that. All right. So, what I'd like to do tonight is start out with a presentation that I put together with a little help with from Garrett. That we're going to kind of tag team this a little bit, but to kind of first recognize Faribault Transportation and the crew here that they have brought with them tonight, trying to really relay to the board all the work that this group of people behind me and beside me do every day. Until I was employed here by the school district, I never really realized what goes into getting our kids to and from school. And not only the bus drivers, right, which you heard a great example of here earlier tonight, but all of the other helpers and aides that ride the bus, to all the office staff which are behind me that I'll introduce here in a second. So, that being said, we'll move forward here. So, again, the first sheet here, obviously, you're all familiar with Garrett, who's kind of sitting to my left, but his operations director, Bill. Bill, raise your hand, please. Okay, sitting behind me in the back row. Katie, who I deal with at least on a weekly basis, I would say, and Marianne, okay, and Marcia. So Marianne deals with a lot of the training, obviously works with our sites very closely around discipline, has put me on the bus a few times to help out in that situation. Marcia, who does all the activities, and if you see the laundry list of activities that we get every month, it's absolutely incredible what Jill and AP goes through to enter all those and all the coordination that it takes to get kids and teams where they're going. So again, a little bit about kind of our long-standing partnership. I'm going to turn this one over to Garrett to talk about this one, and as John says, chew him on for a little bit.
So just to thank you, Scott, and thank you to the board again for the time this afternoon. Just to explain a little bit about the details of what we provide at Faribault Transportation. So of course, to and from regular ed transportation, so bringing students to and from school, special education as well, so to school and home from school. Also, special education daily shuttles, so we have many mainstream shuttles amongst different schools or private schools, MSAD and MSAB, with the co-op as well, the special ed co-op. So those types of shuttles that we perform throughout most of the days. We have after-school programming as well that we transport students at the end of the day. So those would be students that are able to get additional programming at schools, and we send buses back into the evenings to pick those students up and take them home and drop them off at their homes after that programming is done. Extracurricular transportation is field trips, athletic events, special ed field trips, et cetera, that Scott had mentioned that Marcia books there for us and the different teachers, coaches, so that all the needs there. We support, in addition to motor coach needs, if there are any needs for teams or field trips, we can provide that. We work, as Scott mentioned, the daily routing of the system. Katie works very detailed with that, along with support staff here at our office. But so we route the system. So there are school districts that do actually perform routing, and we are and have always provided that service along with the rest of our services there. So we put the students on the routes. I'll notify them of the times and pickup locations, and manage that with our drivers as well. And then lastly, student management, viewing cameras on the buses, assisting with those sorts of situations, and keeping the peace on the bus. We have good relationships with the schools as well, and great support from the principals and teachers there, which certainly helps us go a long way. And we do our part getting the reports from the drivers and working through to help students, keep students safe on the bus.
So before I start in on this, I want to just say that school routing, I never thought that could be as complicated actually as it is. And so Katie does a great job with that, working with all our staff, with Brenda here in our office, trying to get reports done, state reporting. You know, the school management part of it, and the activities is great as well. And these office people behind me just do a phenomenal job in what they do. Plus, they do plan pretty good parties too occasionally from time to time that I happen to get invited to. So, but a couple other things we heard earlier about the transportation award winners that have happened over the last 29 years. Garrett had mentioned all the cameras and the buses, but the one thing I did really want to point out on this is the third bullet there, that the donations back to the community and to the kids of Faribault High School through all the scholarships that they've done. We'll have some pictures here shortly of Garrett actually dressed up in suit and tie, so those go into perpetuity here on the slideshow. The other thing on here that happened right as I started here with Faribault is all of the, during COVID, right, all the meals that were delivered by the bus drivers, right? They shifted gears from delivering and picking up kids to picking up food and delivering food all over the place. And, you know, that was a big shift there to actually make things happen in our community as well. Next slide. Again, we got some pictures there. You know, Katie's not always quite as happy as that, but pretty much all the time. So just wanted to put those on there. And again, recognize the team behind Garrett that does everything to keep everything going. It's incredible. So this slide is a snapshot that I pulled off of Department of Ed. This is based on, sorry, I'll talk into the mic. This is based on 22 data. Right, so as 23 data isn't finalized yet, but you can kind of see the column there in the light tan that our cost per student, right, which is what is represented in the column over there, is the second lowest in the Big Nine. Right, there's a couple other schools on there as well, but you can see a cost of $502. On top of the fact that we have one of the largest square foot areas of a district in the Big Nine as well to cover. So they're covering a lot of territory with the bus routes that they do. Again, some more pictures. Here's the one of Garrett in a suit and tie, not to embarrass him one more time, but I told him I was going to do that. But I would like Garrett or Bill to explain the picture in the upper left-hand corner. I think this is a phenomenal program that I wanted them to explain. So.
Yes, so we implemented it's called the Golden Ticket Program a number of years ago. And so in order to kind of focus on the positives, in this world it's easy to focus on the negatives and kind of correcting certain situations, but we also know there are a lot of good things that happen on our buses and our schools as well, and we're obviously involved in the bus side of things. So we created a golden ticket where we can recognize students who do something good. So maybe they're consistently good riders. maybe they've had a challenging year or a couple months or what have you, and they've turned it around and kind of improved their behavior. Maybe they've helped another student. Maybe they've helped the driver with something or other. So any of those actions can earn a student a golden ticket, it's called. And so that's just what it is. The driver fills it out and gives one piece to the student to take home and show their teacher, parents, etc. And also the other half of the ticket goes into a drawing where this young student won the drawing and won a T-shirt in recognition amongst her peers at school, at Lincoln School. This one was. We just tried to put this into effect to spread positivity, and it's kind of worked. The students get pretty excited and ask when the next golden ticket's going to be handed out, and try to earn that, and then positivity spreads, and that's what we've seen. So that's what this picture is of, and many students across the district are receiving golden tickets every day. So there are a lot of great things that happen daily that we get to observe as well.
So now we'll talk about a few more numbers, the thing that I do best here. So this slide, I know there's a lot of numbers on there, but I just want to walk through to kind of give you guys a snapshot of what has happened as far as our contract has gone for the last 4 years, right? So our contract, as you are aware, expires here at the end of August. And so looking at the last 4 years of our contract with Faribault Transportation, so that would be fiscal year 20, 21, 22, and 23 that we just finished in June. You can kind of see the numbers that our contract has been over those years. So it's been for general ed transportation at 1%, special ed transportation at 3%, and all activities really at 2%. And that's been pretty steady, or has been steady, over the last 4 years, And then what that does is it gives us a blended rate of about 2.2%, okay? If you see that there on the subtotal line, moving all the way across. The next line down is operational savings, okay? So what that line has done is that's taken into account efficiencies that Faribault Transportation has saved the district in the respective years. So in fiscal year 21, we went from 22 routes to 21 routes. That saved us, average bus routes, about $65,000. Again, we saved that again in 22, right? In 22, we went from 21 routes to 23 routes. And for the board to remember, that is the year we added the 2 extra routes to move the miles from 2 miles down to 1 mile, right? Correct? At the secondary, at the high school. Yep, thank you. And again, we still had the 1 route savings, so we saved another $65,000 there. Again, this year in fiscal year 23, they were able to do that mileage savings with 1 route, so we saved another route, along with more efficiencies through their work, and we saved actually 2 routes in fiscal year 23. So again, you take the 65,000 times 3, you get to $194,500. That gives us totals across the bottom. Again, 2.2%, 0.5% with the savings. Again, 2.2%, and actually we had an actual negative expense in 23 because of the savings in those 2 routes. Okay, I'll stop there. Does that make sense, moving across the line? The last thing I want to point out in this is if you look at a lot of the other Big 9 schools, and you go back to the slide that I had up there with our cost per student, you can see our Big 9 peers have more inflationary costs than what we did over the last 4 years. So inflationary numbers based on CPI of 1.2%, so we were a little over in fiscal year 20. We are extremely under in fiscal year 21, same with fiscal year 22, and the same with fiscal year 23. If you add up all those savings over the last 4 years, estimated, right, these are all estimated numbers of just under $1.1 million that Faribault Transportation has saved this district compared to some of our Big 9 peers across the conference. So, any questions on that? Okay. So, again, a few more pictures. Up top center there, one of those parties that I get invited to from time to time. And again, some other goodwill things that they do with the trunk or treat out of the back of a bus and some of those other things that just wanted to show off there a little bit. So as we move into kind of the proposal, and so as you can see if you've read through the contracts and the paperwork, we have a 4-year locked-in rate, as you can see there, of 7%, 12%, 7%, and then 7%, 11%, and 7% again in 25, and then rates coming back down more aligned to hopefully where inflation is when we get out that far. And then you can see roughly the annual increase in the costs year over year. So about $386,000 in fiscal year 24, about $400,000 in fiscal year 25, $272 in 26, and $290 in 27. Okay. Again, a few more pictures. And again, this is a snapshot of the last 4 years and the next 6 years of the 10-year contract. I couldn't put any more column rows on here, otherwise you wouldn't be able to read it from where you're sitting. So again, looking at a 10-year snapshot for regular transportation, we're right at 3% average over over 10 years. Special ed, 5.3%. And activities just measured a couple different ways at about 3.4%, 10-year average. Any questions on?
Scott, why special ed more?
I can let Garrett talk to that, but again, there's more aides that ride the special ed buses, the cost of the equipment on those buses. Garrett, those are the two big things, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, just the routing is a lot more involved. So every student has their own curb door-to-door service. So that's more involved. The training of the drivers is more involved as well. The equipment, I think Scott just mentioned there, and just understanding the different needs of the students and those sorts of things. So it's kind of number of items that add up to that.
Thank you.
And just kind of a summary of the budget that I presented last month to the board. We had $428,000 in the budget based on the proposal here at 386, or estimated savings of about $42,000 that we'll see in the budget for fiscal year 24 for transportation, all in. And again, all estimated, right, based on historical numbers. So I'm going to stop there. Does anybody have any questions? Preferably not for me, but I've got these smart people that are sitting to my left and behind me that could probably do a better job than I can. So.
Scott, Garrett, do you have any electric buses? Was there a program you were going under for that?
Yeah, we do have one electric bus that went into service in October of this past year, so October 22. And there was a Volkswagen grant for that, for clean air. So the Volkswagen settlement, if you remember from a number of years ago, with their diesel engines, there was a federal suit on that, and that funding has gone towards trucks, buses for some clean air type propositions, and this was one of them, the electric school bus. So we did get a portion of that covered. And it has been in service for a little under a year now.
How's it operating, being electric?
Yeah, it operates very well. We have a driver who's driven with us for 16 years, and he's done an awesome job. He loves it. It's quieter. It's got a lot of torque. It takes off very quickly. It has air conditioning in there. It's just like basically a golf cart. It doesn't create any noise. So basically, it actually has a speaker on the front bumper that creates noise so that people can hear it coming. It just creates like a white noise type sound. People always wonder about how it would, heat up in the winter, and that was never an issue. 136 miles on the very high end for range, and then on the low end and difficult terrain in winter and wind and that sort of thing is on the 82-mile range. We definitely felt a difference in the winter. But we can get by driving a route, and probably AM and PM we could get by pretty easily. So school bus is a decent application just because we know what the route is every day. It comes back to our garage every day. We can, treat it if necessary and plug it in and that sort of thing. So,
So you want to take this electric bus to a sporting event, right?
We would not and have not. No, you could to some, but we just have not done that. It's very similar operationally for the driver, but it still takes a little bit of training to where that's a piece of it as well. But yeah, we just don't want to risk it at this point. So.
Interesting. Any further questions, or Dr. Robichaud?
Mr. Chair, I've worked with Faribault Transportation Company over the years, and I can't imagine working with any other transportation company than the services that they have provided over the years. Not only since Garrett took over ownership, but before that, but appreciate it. And I just want to single out Garrett because he also serves on the FAPSETA, our scholarship board, and is very dedicated and has indicated. I thought that number looked a little small, Garrett. I thought it would have been far more than $100,000 that your company has donated in scholarships that have enabled many students to go on to secondary education. So on behalf of FAPSETA, if I may, thank you very much, Faribault Transportation and Garrett, for continue that donation.
Of course, you're welcome.
I don't know if Garrett mentioned this, and maybe I just missed it, but this is the 75th year here in fiscal year 23, and this contract would extend that to 85 years. So, again, a very long time.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say I'm grateful for the partnership we have with our district and Faribault Transportation. And thank you to you, Garrett, and your crew for the little extra things you do as a bus company. And especially the scholarships were most impressive to me. Thank you.
Anybody else? I would like to thank you. First of all, I've always admired Faribault Transportation because to me it appears like you're a family. And I know I've known many of the bus drivers over the years and friends with them, and in my retirement, they tried to recruit me to think I'd be a good bus driver, and I told them you haven't seen me drive lately, so maybe I'm not there. But even being recruited by staff members, et cetera, saying, come and drive bus, or here we are, and whatever, and then in talking with other districts, saying the issues they have with their transportation companies, with bus drivers, we don't have that. And thanks to you, we don't have that. And like I said before, I firmly believe that a child's education starts when they step on the curb to get on that bus. And they're first greeted by the bus driver and how their ride is. And bus drivers solve a lot of little problems on the bus that, forgot my book bag or whatever, and and having a bad day, or come and sit here, or I'll help. Thanks to your bus drivers and your company for all the great work you do. We're truly blessed to have you. As our company. So thank you again. It's just amazing. And then the scholarships and all the extras you do for the community and it's not just the public schools, it's the parochials and the other charter schools and stuff too that you serve. You just do a quality job. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
And I'd echo what Mr. Bellingham said. I'm not very original today. But 85 years is or 75 years now, and potentially 85 years. That's really, really impressive. I know, wearing my chamber hat, that you're one of our longest standing members, and so I appreciate, as a parent, all that you guys have done. I mean, every time I call you, and you know my kids, you know my husband's name, you know my daycare kids' names. It's impressive, and I can't imagine another avenue. So thank you for what you're doing.
And I'll just add in that everyone sees the buses and they see the drivers and they see all that. What they don't see is the service that I, as a superintendent, get, mainly from Garrett with our 4 a.m. calls in the wintertime, discussing what the roads are like. Garrett is out driving the roads and reporting about their conditions. So there's a lot more services that we get besides just the buses that we see. So, and I'm very thankful for that as well.
I've always wondered about the scheduling. Katie, I know you do the scheduling. Amazing. I mean, it's how everything has to blend together, and then there's field trips thrown in and all this other. So, yes, thank you. Board members, let's move on here, and let's have a motion for approval of the fiscal year 24 through fiscal year 33 transportation contract with Faribault Transportation.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Robichaux, for the motion. Do you have a second? Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Any further discussion and/or accolades? Points?
Just, Mr. Chair, if I could just throw in, I think there should be something where the superintendent has to get up at 4:30 and drive the roads himself, along with Mr. Garrett.
I did drive some roads this year, not as many as Garrett did, but I did drive some.
We're going to go back to the original motion here of approving this here. So we'll get into Mr. Bente's contract with driving the roads later. So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So one last chime in for me. I'd like to again thank Garrett and Katie and Marcia and Marianne and Bill and all the drivers and aides and everybody else who make this part of my job so easy. So thanks again to all of you. And thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Bellingham, there is still time. We train good people to be good drivers. And Mr. Bent, you don't have to call me in the summer at 4 a.m. No, thank you very much. We have had an extremely good partnership, and it's amazing to see how the partnership back and forth allows us to treat our people who are very deserving of that. And I can't say enough how much we appreciate that, because the people behind me, in addition to our drivers and aides, we are extremely blessed to have those individuals behind the wheels and serving the youth of our community every single day. And that's because of the partnership and the support that we get through difficult times, the COVID times. But that's just, there's many others, little ups and downs that allow us to do what we love to do, and we greatly appreciate it, and greatly appreciate our staff and group too. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Board members will now move on to item 9D2, consider approval of the fiscal year 24 Student Resource Officer SRO contract. Could we have a motion for approval of that contract, please?
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. And discussion. As soon as I get my iPad to go there.
I can just mention,
Thank
John,
you, Scott.
while you're working through that this again is just kind of an annual renewal of our SROs for the middle school and the high school. In talking with the city and the chief, this 2.25% is tied to their contract. So this is going past their board as well. But they're looking forward to another good year here in Faribault with the schools.
Excellent. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second, correct? For approval? Did I? Yes, we do. Okay. Dr. Robichaux. Okay. So any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next, we'll move on to agenda item number 10, the Policy Committee. There's no report. Item number 11, Other Matters. 11A, consider approval of Resolution 24-02, designating Julie Hull, Director of Teaching and Learning, as the local education agency, LEA, for Faribault Public Schools for the 2023-2024 school year. So before discussion happens, let's have a motion for approval of Resolution 24-02.
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Woodrow. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Steves. And now discussion. Mr. Bente, I'm just going to ask you if you would remind us as to what is the local education agency's duties by designating Ms. Hull about that.
Yeah, so this is an annual approval. What it does is it gives Ms. Hall the authority to act on behalf of the district with Minnesota Department of Education.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Discussion? Discussion, this is a roll call item. Ms. Steves?
Linda Boudreau,
Aye.
Linda Moore,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud,
Aye.
Cassie Steves, aye. John Bellingham.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you so much. Okay, next we'll move on to agenda item 11B. Consider approval of the 2023-2024 student handbooks for Jefferson, Lincoln, Roosevelt Elementary Schools, and Early Childhood Programs Handbook. So we have a motion for approval of the 2023-2024 student handbooks as read, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Robichaud. Discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Dr.
Go ahead.
Ms. Moore.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I wanted to pull out the Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt because I'd like to add, it's actually the same amendment, so I'm not sure how to do that. Do we have to do each one separately then?
So we have a motion and a second for approval already.
But I did ask you before, so,
Okay, so basically what you wish to do
yes.
is,
And it's the same amendment to all three of them, except for the early childhood.
okay, so if you're going, I would say if you're going to offer your amendment just for the Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt schools with this particular motion.
Yes, I would like to offer, it's the same amendment actually for all three of
That's
them.
correct. So we have,
Yes, so I can give my reasoning.
we're in discussion now. If you wish to
Okay,
provide your amendment, you certainly may.
yes, I'd like to,
So,
and I think I'd like to just read my rationale, if I may.
first
Okay.
state your,
My resolution.
state your amendment.
Okay. The amendment I propose is to add two sentences after the last sentence it's in section 7. Would be the administration must establish strategies for creating a positive school climate and use evidence-based social emotional learning to prevent and reduce discrimination and other improper conduct. The amendment I propose is to add two sentences after this last sentence. I believe this amendment will promote unity and discourage discord within our school system.
Okay, just your amendment now, not
Okay.
rationale. You'll
Oh,
get a
okay.
chance to describe
I'll do that later then.
In
Okay.
discussions, I want just the
Okay.
amendment.
The implementation of SEL practices and strategies will not include divisive elements such as, but not limited to, racial, sex, or gender identity. Further, these practices and strategies will be applied at all levels within our school system, including but not limited to school settings, classroom settings, counselor/social worker/psychological settings or sessions, and other school-related activities. So that is my amendment that I would like to propose. Do I make a motion for that then, and then we
I think you
discuss?
just did. You
Okay.
said
All
you
right.
moved to
Oh,
put
okay.
that
Yes.
reading in, correct?
Yes, okay,
Okay,
thank you.
so you have a motion for an amendment.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
We do have a second. So for discussion. So, Ms. Moore, before I turn it over to you for your rationale for your thing, I would like to, and Ms. Zavarel or someone, if we could put this up on the screen, I'm looking through and I'm on the Jefferson handbook, so I'd like to find exactly where
It's
this is at.
section 7 on
Thank
all
you.
of them, yes.
Section 7.
I think Jefferson does not have page numbers, at least when I ran it off, it didn't, so.
Yeah, they're up
But
there.
it's on section 7, it's under, wait a minute. I think it's under training and education, if I can find it here.
You have a page.
Yeah.
Student activities.
No, 7 is for Jefferson now we're looking at?
I'm looking
It
at
would be
Jefferson.
7, training and education.
On what page?
Jefferson doesn't have page numbers.
Jefferson has page numbers on the upper right
It's
corner.
in the upper right? Oh, wait, when I ran it off,
Page-
I didn't see it.
Excuse me, board members, I have on my
I don't have
iPad
it.
page 20,
Okay.
the bottom of 19, the beginning of page
Apologize because
Okay.
when I ran it off, it didn't show the page numbers, so.
Page 20, and then you're looking at your amendment to do is what letter now, Ms. Moore?
It would be, okay, it's under 7E.
Okay, I have it now.
Wait a minute, 7, it would be, under train, well, 7 is training and education.
7E.
Jefferson's handbook, and 7 is student activities. Okay, it's,
Well, it's
No,
item 7 under,
Page 20.
it says school district action is 5, it's on page 20 in the upper right-hand corner.
After training and education.
yes, it's under training and education.
Training and
yes.
education, it says item 7.
Yep, and then you would go down to see where E is.
I have E, correct?
Okay, and go down, there we go. The administration must establish strategies for creating oops, what happened?
Oh, so you're looking at the paragraph after item
Yes,
E?
there we go, after E, the paragraph after E. And I would like to put the amendment after those two,
Okay, so
yeah, after that.
your amendment again is what?
Okay, I will read that again. The implementation of SEL practices and strategies will not include divisive elements such as, but not limited to, racial, sex, or gender identity. Further, these practices and strategies will be applied at all levels within our school system, including, but not limited to, school settings, classroom settings, counselor/social worker/psychological settings, or sessions and other school-related activities. Those are the,
Okay, since this is
I have it on right here. I could give you a copy. I only
Okay,
have
so
one
what I
copy.
would ask to do
Okay.
is if we could get copies for all board members and also be able to put it up on the screen.
Okay, I've got
Is that possible, Ms. Zavaro, if we can?
it. Okay.
Okay, so with that, till those copies come back, the chair is going to issue a 10-minute recess for those copies to be made and presented to the board. So we are in recess. We will rejoin back again in 10 minutes at 7:02. Board members, we are back. I call back from a recess here to place us back where we were before. We are on agenda item 11B, consider approval of the 2023-2024 student handbooks for Jefferson, Lincoln, Roosevelt Elementary Schools and early childhood programs. We have a motion and a second for approval of that. Next, we have a motion for an amendment for the student handbooks for Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt Elementary Schools on those three student handbooks on page 20. Try to get to that again. On page 20, the paragraph started beginning after the letter E, starting with the administration must establish strategies for creating a positive school climate and use evidence-based social-emotional learning to prevent and reduce discrimination and other improper conduct. And then adding on to that sentence is the implementation, the amendment, proposed amendment is, as on the screen here, the implementation of SEL practices and strategies will not include diverse elements such as, but not limited to, racial, sex, or gender identity. Another paragraph is proposed to be added. Further, these practices and strategies will be applied at all levels within our school system, including but not limited to school settings, classroom settings, counselor/social worker/psychological settings/sessions, and other school-related activities. So before I turn it over for discussion, Ms. Moore, did I get that correct? The motion, we have your amendment for a motion and a second. That is correct, right?
Okay. Yes.
So with that, we now have discussion. Ms. Moore, if you would like to speak to your motion for an amendment. So, and remember,
Yes.
all comments, all discussion must pertain to the motion on the amendment only. On the amendment, the two paragraphs that were on the screen. So, Ms. Moore.
I have my, okay, because I want to explain my rationale.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I would like to thank the people who put this together for their thought, time, and effort into these student handbooks, and I agree with the basic principles espoused in these 4 documents. And I agree with the policies on harassment and violence within our 3 elementary schools. We are talking about bullying here.
Let's have your comments
Okay.
relating to the 2 paragraphs that you have supplied.
Okay, and this is my rationale for it. Okay, we in this district cannot tolerate any form of harassment, of violence against students or employees or groups of students or employee on the basis of race, color, creed, religion, or any other physical characteristic or anything else, whatever that may be. Make no mistake, if we favor or show partiality toward one person or group, we are discriminating against the others. Students and employees are human beings and need to be treated with dignity and respect. When I was working on this, I did look up bullying in my thesaurus and found that the term has multiple synonyms, including intimidation, oppression, persecuting, harassment, discrimination, and victimization, to name a few. To reiterate, it is necessary that we all show proper respect to everyone within our public school district, and I think we can all agree with this statement. Further, as a school board member, we recognize that within the definition of inclusion and equity, all student and groups are to be treated equally without discrimination. Therefore, school personnel must continually strive for brotherly love and unity, thus eliminating division and strife within our school system and classrooms. So don't you think it's time that we, within the district, stop putting individuals into categories that serves to divide and pull us apart, not unify us? Instead of what divides us, we need to start looking at what unites us. Our students have been doing this. Look at Ella with no tummies left behind. Let's concentrate on these things. However, I and others have noticed something, and that is one major point of contention at the national, state, and local levels is the use of race and gender identity to divide and cause dissension, disunity, and hate among individuals. Social emotional learning, SEL, as it now stands, goes through a lens that infers Americans are oppressive, hateful, and racist. This statement in itself is conflict-ridden and divisive and can cause great dissension among individuals and groups. Therefore, as I said, I would like to propose this amendment to the Roosevelt, Lincoln, and Jefferson handbooks, and I think
Right.
I've said that. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Boudreau?
is it appropriate to offer an amendment to the amendment?
You may offer an amendment to the amendment, yes?
I would like to offer a friendly amendment. The author is okay with it, to eliminate the second paragraph and just go with the first paragraph, which states the implementation of SEL practices and strategies will not include divisive elements such as, but not limited to, racial, sex, or gender identity. That is the entire amendment with my amendment to the amendment.
Okay, so what, for my clarification, Ms. Boudreau, so what you're saying is you wish to eliminate the second paragraph? And
Yes,
to have
sir.
the amendment just as the first paragraph?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right? Do we have a second for that amendment?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. We have a motion and a second. So now we are dealing with just talking about the amendment is just the first paragraph and eliminating the second paragraph. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I agree with that.
Dr. Robichaud.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I guess this addresses both the amendments, and there's no way I can vote for that amendment because I do not personally or professionally see the discussion about race, sex, or gender entity as a diversive, and I do not see it dividing our students. And I think if we're going to have social emotional learning within the school district, we must start talking about what's happened in the past to truly educate our students and to eliminate the discussion of racial, sex, or gender identity. And I think there's some other items that are missing there. I think is just doing a disservice to our students.
Thank you, Dr. Robichaud. Ms. Moore, did you have something?
No, I've said what I wanted to say.
Okay.
So,
Further discussion. Ms. Steves.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I read through all of the handbooks in their entirety, and I appreciate the policy references. As a parent, I appreciate the expectations that are laid out for parents, students, and staff. I guess when I think back to social and emotional learning, it consists of 5 elements, and they're pretty important things that I want my own kids to learn. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. I guess this is a rhetorical question, but am I missing something in which we don't want our students to have these skills? I agree with the statement that's in the policy or in the handbook. The administration must establish strategies for creating positive school climate and use evidence-based social and emotional learning to prevent and reduce discrimination and other improper conduct. This is really important to me as a parent, and as a board member, this statement is equally important. At the end of the day, I wholeheartedly agree that divisive elements should not be tolerated in classrooms, any school activity, and really bluntly here at this table. Ms. Moore, specifically, could you share with us what elements in which you're uncomfortable with specific examples that happen within our district? And Mr. Benty, would you also please describe some examples of social and emotional learning and how it's currently being used in our classrooms?
So Ms. Moore, I believe the first question was directed to you from...
Actually, I think it's quite explanatory what I'm saying. It's, and so I'm not going to go into that.
And then Mr. Benty?
So for clarification, you want to know what social emotional,
Yeah, just if we could just talk about it in a public fashion, I guess my experience with social emotion and emotional learning, these are important things that I want to teach my own kids. And so I think if we can shed some light
Yeah.
and some transparency.
Yeah, so the social emotional learning curriculum that we use in grades in the elementary school and some in the middle school, although we're just focusing on the elementary school here, is called Second Step. It is based on the 5 that you talked about. It's self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. Those are broken down into 4 units, which are skills for learning, empathy, emotional management, and problem solving. That is for kindergarten and first grade and second grade and third grade. And then in fourth grade, they drop the empathy, or they combine empathy and skills for learning and emotional management and problem solving. There are 25 lessons in kindergarten that are supposed to be 1-week lessons, so they're spread out. I've got a list of all the lessons here and the skills, along with the scope and sequence of our curriculum for Second Step, as well as some sample lesson plans. So I don't know how in-depth you want to go with this, but we have plenty of resources we can share with you. I will say I've scanned through this afternoon after learning of Dr. Moore's concern, and scanning through here, I'm not seeing anything at the K through 5 level that talks about racial, sexual, or gender. I don't see those words in here at anywhere. So,
And I'm just going to follow. Thank you for that explanation. So I know John is going to kick me if I go off subject. So just to clarify, elements of critical race theory.
That's
rumblings.
not part of the,
Okay.
we're dealing with an amendment to the amendment.
Okay.
Okay? So further discussion. Board members, a reminder, we have an amendment to the amendment. So could we get back up on the screen the 2 paragraphs, please? And so the amendment to the amendment proposes the elimination of the second paragraph there and just to insert the first paragraph there. This is a reminder where we're at. This is an amendment to the amendment. Dr. Robichaud.
Go ahead, Ms.
Mr. Chair, I would rescind the second, may I do that, rescind the second paragraph and just leave the first one? Or do we have to vote on this?
I believe we have to vote on it.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, we're going to vote on it.
Ms. Moore, I just have a question about your first paragraph. And you've indicated racial, sex, and gender identity. Why did you not include handicap, age, and religious or other factors that people discriminate against? Why did you pick those 3 items?
Yes, Dr. Robichaud, I think my explanation is self-explanatory, and I'm not going to get into debate with you. Thank you. I've said what I'm going to say.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment to the amendment. The chair has determined we will do a roll call for these amendments. So the amendment to the amendment, once again, is the elimination of the second paragraph and just insert the first paragraph. So voting aye, you would vote in favor of the amendment. Voting nay, you're not in favor of the amendment. Ms. Steves, will you please do a roll call?
Okay. Just to clarify, paragraph or sentence 1, if we vote yes, we are in favor.
You are in favor of inserting that into the handbook?
Okay.
No, wait.
I'm
Wait a
sorry.
minute.
You are in favor of having that as an amendment? I'm sorry, you're correct.
You have 2 amendments, Chair.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so the first amendment, so the first amendment.
First amendment
I'm sorry.
is deleting the second paragraph.
The amendment to the amendment is removing the second paragraph and just leaving the first paragraph. That's what we're doing.
Correct.
Thank you for the clarification. Sorry.
I'm just trying to. Linda Boudreau.
Aye.
Linda Moore.
Aye.
Richard Olson.
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud.
No.
Cassie Steves, no. John Bellingham.
Nay. Motion does not pass due to lack of a
Fails.
majority. So the amendment to the amendment does not pass. Now we are back to our original amendment of inserting these two paragraphs into the handbook here. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, may I withdraw that second part, or can I do that? The second part?
No.
Draw the whole amendment.
No, I don't believe you can.
Okay.
Further discussion? Okay, we are going to
I do
vote.
feel that I want to caution the board here. The way this is written, and I'm not speaking for or against this amendment, but I want to caution the board, the way this is written with that second paragraph, now that it's back in play, it does say at all levels in our school system. We have social studies standards that are from our state that we have to cover that would violate this. So I'm not sure the standards would trump our local practices and policy, but I just want to make sure that the board understands that at this point.
Yes. So with that, board members, I'd like to comment here. Thank you for the reminder of that. So with the second paragraph, what's been proposed to insert is that in an elementary handbook, you're dictating what should happen at middle school, high school, ALC, et cetera. I don't believe a handbook should dictate to other levels of what practices they should have. Second, adding these into, proposing an amendment here, or adding these things in, these were presented to us through Mr. Benty by the building administration. Building administration develops these handbooks via our policies that we have on the books. Also, they have these handbooks which are individualized to each building, as each building is different, has different operating procedures, et cetera here. So I guess in kind of a theoretical question, when are we trusting our administration to, when they bring forth items for us to approve in a handbook, that they are doing the right thing, that we have hired them to protect our kids? I don't believe any administrator, any site council group, anything would ever put anything in a handbook which would be detrimental to our students. So again, my question is, what is the intent here? I don't believe national, state, or local politics should come into play here with these amendments. And once again, I believe trust is an issue here, and doing what's best in each in particular building. So with that,
Mr. Chair.
Dr. Robichaud.
Appreciate what you just indicated, and it's very well said about putting some trust in our administrators. I also want to address Mr. Benty's comment about all levels. As we are talking about elementary schools handbooks, it's implied that all levels are K through 5, not secondary to that level. So,
That's not the way that I read.
well, we're reading it two different ways then.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, the way that I read it was that it was talking about all levels of school, elementary, and secondary.
Because the focus is on the elementary handbooks, all levels would mean K through 5. I would read it that way.
Dr. Robichaud, I'm going to interject here, and I'm just going to say, in the second paragraph, it says, at all levels within our school system. So that's how I'm interpreting middle school, high school, ALC, anything outside the realm of elementary. We're ready to vote. Once again, I will call for a roll call. This is for the amendment to add those two paragraphs into the handbooks for Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt elementaries. Ms. Steves, when you're ready.
Abstain.
Linda Moore,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud?
No.
Jesse Steves? No. John Bellingham?
No. So the motion fails, 4-2, as the abstention goes in favor of the majority vote. Back to our original motion now, of which we do have a motion and a second. Kathy, I'm correct on that, right? For approval of the 2023-2024 student handbooks for Jefferson, Lincoln, Roosevelt elementary schools and early childhood programs. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Robichaud.
may sound a little bit like wordsmithing, but I believe it's in Lincoln's handbook, there's a reference to the State Board of Education, which no longer exists.
Should be
It'll be
Pellsby.
crossed out, yep.
Yes, okay.
Also, a question, and this goes to Mr. Benty, and certainly approve it, but an answer to why is gifted and talented included in a couple of the handbooks, and also why is multicultural gender fair curriculum excluded in a couple of handbooks, and then also why is Fernbook no longer referenced. So those are just some questions I had.
So the Fernbrook reference is removed because we're no longer partnering with them.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What was your other question? I'm sorry.
The other one is gifted and talented are referenced in one of the handbooks, but not in the other two, or is removed. And then multicultural gender fair is removed in two of the handbooks, but not in one of them. Just a clarification.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look those up.
That's fine.
So I can check in with the principals around
Yeah,
those
that's
pieces.
fine. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
you're welcome. Any further discussion on the motion? Last call. Ms. Steves, when you're ready. You want me to clarify that again? Okay. So a vote in the affirmative would be for approval of the student handbooks for Jefferson, Lincoln, Roosevelt, and early childhood programs. A vote in the negative is not approval of those student handbooks. Okay?
Linda Boudreau?
Aye.
Linda Moore?
Nay.
Richard Olson?
Nay.
Jerry Robichaud?
Aye.
Jesse Steves? Aye. John Bellingham?
Aye.
Passes 4-2.
Thank you. Move on now to item number 12, other items of information. School board members, 12A school board members, the floor is yours. Anyone wish to add anything? Crickets tonight, okay. So I will summarize a couple of things here. First of all, in consultation with Chair Wolf after our work session on July 10th, one of the main agenda item there was the ethics complaint. I wish to maybe put some closure or information to the board and the general public. This statement, at this time, the board will take no further action on the ethics complaint. The board will do its due diligence to investigate and communicate all complaints that are filed to the district, to the district. So Mr. Wolf and I felt after that meeting, leaving there, that maybe we didn't provide closure or enough information at the end of that meeting, so I wish to make that comment as well tonight. With that being said, next we'll move on to 12B, the superintendent, Mr. Benty.
I'm surprised to announce that summer is wrapping up quickly. We only have a few more weeks of summer before our teachers will report back to our buildings. We are quickly preparing for the students to arrive here in about a month, a little over a month. So we have teachers and staff members and principals that are going to an AVID conference that is up in Minneapolis this week. So they'll be there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for that. We have been doing a lot of work around the goals that the board has set for the district. Those will be broken out to our, they've been sent out to our staff across the district, but they will be the focus point of site teams as they set goals here in this room in about 2 weeks. So we are quickly in the goal-setting area across the district, and we're going to see more and more focus on our goals and our mission statement. So that's the report from the superintendent.
Thank you. Item number 13, dates to remember. August 1st, 2023, 1 o'clock p.m., Special Policy Committee meeting here at the district office. August 7th, 2023 is the work session, 5:30 p.m. here in the Falcon Room. August 14th, 2023, 7:30 a.m. finance meeting, which is virtual. And then August 21st, 2023, 5:30 p.m. regular board meeting. We'll move on now to item number 14, which is adjournment of the business meeting. So I wish to combine, have the motion for adjourn the regular business meeting and go into a closed session for the superintendent year-end review.
Mr. Chair, I move to close the meeting for the purpose of evaluating the superintendent for a year-end review.
And so you wish to adjourn the business meeting and then go into closed session?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Woodrow. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Robichaux. Discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes 6-0. So we are adjourned and going into closed session. We'll take a few minutes, 5 minutes here to clear the room and get set for the superintendent year-end review.